Understanding depression, what it is, why it happens, and how it shapes human experience. Depression is one of the most misunderstood conditions in the human emotional spectrum. It sits at the intersection of biology, psychology, environment, and life experience. Even though millions of people experience it at some point in their lives, depression is often treated like a simple feeling, something you should snap out of, ignore, or fight with willpower. But the truth is far deeper, far more complex, and far more connected to the human story than most people realize. In this first part, we will explore depression in a calm, structured, and thoughtful way. The goal is not only to educate, but also to make sense of what depression feels like, why it happens, and what science tells us about its origins. You can read it like a script, narrate it in a video, or convert it into audio. Its flow is optimized for listening. What depression actually is. Depression is not the same as sadness. Sadness is a natural emotion, something that arises when you lose something or someone, when plans fail, when something hurts your heart. Sadness is temporary and flexible. It comes and goes, it rises and falls with events. Depression, however, is different. It is more like a shadow that lingers over life even when nothing in particular is wrong. It can appear after a major life event, or it can slowly grow over months and years. Some people feel depressed without any obvious cause, which can be confusing and frightening. They may ask themselves, why do I feel this way when my life is mostly fine? That question alone can make the condition feel heavier. Depression affects both the mind and the body. It influences how you think, feel, move, sleep, eat, and relate to the world around you. A person might wake up tired even after sleeping, or feel uninterested in the things that once brought joy. Even small tasks, like taking a shower, answering a message, or going outside, can feel like lifting a mountain. This is because depression alters several systems inside the brain. A mood regulation, a motivation, reward processing, a sleep-wake cycles, a stress responses, a cognitive processing. These aren't personality flaws. They are neurobiological processes. The 4 emotional statements, what they tell us about severity. Earlier, you were presented with 4 statements that reflect different levels of depression. 1, I do not feel sad. 2, I feel sad. 3, I am sad all the time and I can't snap out of it. 4, I am so sad and unhappy that I can't stand it. These statements come from standardized psychological questionnaires used to understand how a person is feeling. They aren't meant to judge, they are meant to measure. Just like you measure blood pressure or temperature, you also measure the intensity of emotional states. Let's explore what each statement actually means. 1, I do not feel sad. This indicates a normal state. The person might be dealing with challenges or stress, but sadness is not dominating their emotional experience. They can process problems, respond realistically, and maintain emotional flexibility. 2, I feel sad. This level suggests mild depression or a temporary emotional response. The person feels down, perhaps discouraged or disappointed, but still has moments of normal mood. The sadness is noticeable, but it is not overwhelming. 3, I am sad all the time and I can't snap out of it. Now we enter clinical territory. This sentence implies that sadness is persistent and independent of external events. Even if something good happens, the sadness remains. The phrase, can't snap out of it, is important because it shows loss of emotional control. Something has shifted biologically and psychologically. 4, I am so sad and unhappy that I can't stand it. This is severe depression. The person is not only constantly sad, They feel emotionally exhausted, mentally trapped, and overwhelmed to the point of distress. This level of depression often comes with physical symptoms, like lack of energy, sleep problems, hopelessness, or even thoughts of giving up. Understanding where someone falls in these four statements helps identify what kind of support or treatment they may need. Why depression happens, the four-pillar model. Depression rarely has one single cause. Instead, it comes from the interaction of four major pillars. 1. Biological factors. 2. Psychological factors. 3. Social and environmental factors. 4. Life events and stress. 1. Biological factors. Depression affects the brain's chemical systems, but not in the simplified way people sometimes describe. It's not one chemical. It involves multiple pathways. Serotonin regulates mood and emotional balance. Dopamine controls pleasure, motivation, and reward. Norepinephrine linked to energy, alertness, and stress. Cortisol, the stress hormone, often high in depressed individuals. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, supports brain cell growth, often reduced in depression. Genetics can also play a role. If depression runs in families, the risk increases, but genetics never guarantee anything. They only influence vulnerability. Another biological factor is inflammation. Recent research shows that chronic inflammation in the body can affect brain function, contributing to depression. This is why some people with autoimmune diseases, chronic pain, or long-term infections develop depressive symptoms. 2. Psychological factors. Depression is strongly linked to negative thinking patterns, low self-esteem, rumination, overthinking, all-or-nothing thinking, traumatic or painful memories. These psychological habits can create loops. For example, a person may think, "I am useless," which lowers their mood, which then makes them act withdrawn, which then reinforces the belief. It becomes a cycle. 3. Social and environmental factors. Humans are profoundly social creatures. Isolation, lack of emotional support, or conflict can significantly affect mental well-being. Major environmental contributors include loneliness, poverty or financial stress, workplace pressure, family conflicts, cultural or societal expectations, discrimination or social rejection. These stresses accumulate and can gradually overwhelm a person's emotional system. 4. Life events and stress. Sometimes depression emerges after events like the death of a loved one, divorce, relationship problems, job loss, long-term illness, major disappointment, traumatic experiences. Even positive changes, like moving to a new country or starting a new job, can trigger depression because they disrupt stability and identity. How depression feels from the inside. People describe depression in many different ways. Some say, "It feels like my emotions are muted." "I feel heavy, like my body is filled with sand." "I don't enjoy anything anymore." "It feels like I'm watching my life from the outside." "I don't recognize myself." Depression can also create physical sensations. Chronic fatigue, appetite changes, muscle weakness, headaches, digestive problems, sleep disturbances. This is because depression affects the brain's connection with the rest of the body. The brain controls hormones, digestion, pain sensitivity, and sleep cycles. So when the brain is under emotional stress, the entire body feels it. The role of money stress in emotional health. You also mentioned a question. Has spending money gotten you or your family into trouble? Financial stress is one of the strongest predictors of depression. It creates fear, instability, and uncertainty. When a person feels responsible for family finances, the pressure can build slowly until it affects mental health. Money problems can cause anxiety, insomnia, guilt, family conflict, shame, social withdrawal. Research shows that financial stress changes how the brain processes risk and reward, making it harder to make decisions and easier to feel overwhelmed. This doesn't mean people are weak. It means the human brain reacts strongly to threats involving survival and security. Why people can't just snap out of depression. One of the most painful misconceptions about depression is the idea that it is a choice. It is not. You cannot snap out of it for the same reason you cannot snap out of a broken leg, high blood pressure, diabetes, pneumonia. Depression is a medical condition, not a character flaw. Several parts of the brain literally function differently during depression. Imaging studies show reduced activity in reward centers, overactive fear responses, slower emotional recovery, changes in decision-making pathways. So expecting someone to just cheer up is like telling someone with a fever to stop being warm. It simply doesn't work that way. Common misunderstandings about depression. Here are some myths, along with clear explanations you can confidently narrate. Myth 1: depression is weakness. Truth: depression affects strong, disciplined, intelligent people too. It is a health condition, not a character defect. Myth 2: depression is caused by personal failure. Truth: many people become depressed even when they are successful or admired. Myth 3: depression means you are lazy. Truth: depression drains physical and mental energy. It is not laziness. Myth 4: antidepressants change your personality. Truth: they simply help restore balance in the brain's chemistry. Myth 5: depression is always caused by a big event. Truth: for many people, depression slowly builds from chronic stress or biological factors. The first step toward healing: understanding your own emotions. You asked for content that you can narrate, something people can listen to. This section is especially important for storytelling and audio. One of the most powerful aspects of healing is the ability to identify and express what you're feeling. Many people live with depression for years because they cannot put their emotions into words. They tell themselves, maybe it's nothing. Well, I'm just tired. It will go away. Others have it worse. But depression thrives in silence. Numbing it reduces its power. When a person says, I feel sad, or I can't snap out of it, they are not complaining, they are diagnosing. They are identifying a real medical condition. Understanding yourself is the first step toward recovery. Where this series is going. Part 1 introduced the emotional landscape of depression. What it is, how it feels, what causes it, and why it is often misunderstood. In Part 2, we will explore how depression affects decision-making, how it changes relationships and family life, the science of stress, cognitive distortions, long-term consequences. In Part 3, we will cover treatment options, lifestyle interventions, therapy, medical approaches, preventing relapse, building resilience. Each part will be more than 1,700 words, narration-friendly, and suitable for both experts and general listeners. Depression's impact on thinking, decisions, relationships, and daily life. Depression is not only a mood disorder. It is a thinking disorder, a perception disorder, and a life disorder. It influences how we see ourselves, how we interpret the world, and how we interact with the people around us. Depression changes the way we make decisions, remember events, and plan for the future. It shifts our energy levels, our motivation, and even the way time feels, slow and heavy for some, fast and uncontrollable for others. This second part dives deeply into the internal mechanisms of depression, the cognitive distortions, the pressure on relationships, the effect on work and life, and the scientific understanding of stress and its impact on the brain. Throughout this chapter, imagine you are listening to a thoughtful podcast, calm, steady, logical, and gently illuminating the hidden corners of the human mind. How depression changes the way we think. One of the most remarkable aspects of depression is how it alters thinking patterns. People often assume thoughts are simply thoughts, like clouds passing in the sky. But our thoughts shape our emotions shape our actions, and our actions shape our lives. Depression affects all three. 1. The negative filter. Depression creates what psychologists call a negative cognitive filter. It's like wearing glasses that tint everything darker. Neutral events become negative, positive events become muted, negative events become overwhelming. For example, a compliment may be dismissed as sarcasm. A small mistake may feel like a disaster. A minor delay may feel like a sign of failure. A friend not responding quickly may feel like rejection. Even memories change under this filter. Depressed individuals remember sad events more than happy ones. The mind becomes biased toward negativity without the person even realizing it. 2. Overgeneralization. This distortion involves taking one event and turning it into a lifelong conclusion. Examples: I failed this job interview, so I will never succeed. This person didn't reply, nobody cares about me. I made a mistake, so I am a failure. In depression, a single data point becomes a universal truth. It is not logical, but it feels true, which is often more powerful than logic. 3. Catastrophizing. This is when the mind jumps to the worst-case scenario. A headache becomes, I might have a brain tumor. A delayed salary becomes, I will end up homeless. A disagreement becomes, the relationship will end. The brain becomes a danger-predicting machine, constantly scanning for threats. 4. Emotional reasoning. This happens when a person confuses feelings with facts. I feel hopeless, therefore my future is hopeless. I feel worthless, therefore I am worthless. I feel guilty, therefore I must have done something wrong. In reality, emotions and facts are two different dimensions, but depression makes them seem identical. 5. Black and white thinking. Life becomes divided into extremes. Success or failure, loved or hated, strong or weak, all good or all bad. There is no middle ground. Life becomes a rigid binary experience instead of a nuanced, flexible one. The science behind cognitive changes. Why does depression distort thinking? Because depression alters the functioning of key brain regions. Prefrontal cortex, PFC. This is responsible for planning, decision-making, logical thinking, impulse control. In depression, activity in the PFC often decreases. This makes it harder to think clearly or make balanced decisions. Amygdala, the emotional alarm center. In depression, it becomes overactive, amplifying fear, sadness, and threat perception. Hippocampus, responsible for memory and learning. Chronic depression can cause it to shrink slightly, making memory weaker and increasing sensitivity to stress. Reward system, nucleus accumbens plus ventral striatum. These areas process pleasure, motivation, and reward. In depression, they become underactive. Things feel dull, flat, or uninteresting. This is why people often say, "I don't enjoy anything anymore. Nothing feels worth the effort. I feel empty." These are not metaphors. They reflect neural changes. The role of stress, a deeper scientific understanding. Stress is not always harmful. In fact, short-term stress is part of survival. It increases alertness, sharpens focus, and boosts energy. But chronic stress, especially emotional stress, can cause significant changes in the brain's structure and chemistry. The stress hormone, cortisol. Cortisol helps the body respond to danger, but when it remains high for long periods, it damages brain cells, suppresses serotonin production, reduces dopamine sensitivity, weakens memory and learning, increases inflammation. High cortisol is one of the strongest biological markers of major depressive disorder. How chronic stress leads to depression. Here is the chain reaction. 1. Stress activates the amygdala fear center. 2. Amygdala signals the body to release cortisol. 3. Cortisol interferes with serotonin and dopamine. 4. Reduced dopamine causes loss of pleasure and motivation. 5. Reduced serotonin causes sadness, anxiety, and irritability. 6. The prefrontal cortex begins to lose control over emotional impulses. 7. Small problems feel overwhelming. 8. Thinking becomes rigid, negative, and pessimistic. 9. The person loses energy, hope, and interest. 10. Depression becomes entrenched. This cycle explains why emotional stress, relationship conflicts, family problems, financial pressure, job instability can lead to depression even without a major traumatic event. How depression impacts relationships. Depression does not only affect the person experiencing it, it affects everyone around them. 1. Emotional withdrawal. A depressed person may stop replying to messages, avoid phone calls, decline invitations, become quiet or distant, express less affection, not because they don't care, but because they feel emotionally drained. This can confuse partners, friends, and family. They may interpret withdrawal as a sign of anger, disinterest, or disrespect. 2. Increased irritability. Depression is often accompanied by irritability or anger, especially in men. This is because the brain's reward system is underactive. Stress hormones are high. Energy is low. The threshold for frustration becomes small. A depressed person may snap easily, not because they want to, but because emotional regulation becomes difficult. 3. Difficulty expressing emotions. Depression often numbs emotional expression. Hugs feel forced. Smiles feel unnatural. Marital intimacy may decrease. Conversations feel exhausting. Loved ones may say, "You don't talk to me like before. You don't laugh anymore. You seem far away." These observations are accurate, but the cause is the illness, not a lack of love. 4. Miscommunication and misinterpretation. Depression changes the meaning of words. For example, a partner might say, "I'm worried about you," but the depressed mind hears, "I'm disappointed in you." A friend might say, "You should get some rest," but the depressed mind hears, "You are useless." This distortion can create unnecessary conflict. Depression in family settings. When a parent is depressed, the entire household feels the impact. Children may notice reduced attention, increased silence, less playfulness, more tension. A depressed parent may feel guilt for not being enough, shame for lacking energy, fear of being a burden, pressure to hide emotions. But hiding depression only makes it grow stronger. Families cope better when emotions are acknowledged openly and calmly. Depression at work. Depression often leads to reduced productivity, difficulty concentrating, poor memory, slow decision-making, procrastination, absenteeism. This is not laziness. This is neurological overload. A depressed brain has fewer cognitive resources available. Tasks that once took minutes now take hours. A simple email can feel like a mountain. Why routine tasks become difficult. Imagine depression as a subtle draining of internal batteries. Mental batteries, emotional batteries, physical batteries. Even small tasks begin to feel monumental. Taking a shower, cleaning the room, preparing food, going outside, answering messages, paying bills. This is why the phrase "just try harder" is not helpful. Trying is happening. The brain simply has reduced capacity. The illusion of time in depression. Depression can distort time perception. For many, the day feels endlessly long. Minutes feel like hours. Nights feel restless and heavy. For others, time disappears. Days blend into each other. There is no sense of progress or direction. This happens because the brain's internal clock, regulated by dopamine and circadian rhythms, becomes disrupted. The emotional numbness. One of the most misunderstood symptoms is emotional numbness. People think depression is only sadness, but many depressed individuals experience no sadness, no joy, no excitement, no anger, just emptiness. This is called anhedonia, the loss of pleasure and emotional response. It is one of the strongest indicators of severe depression. Identity crisis and loss of self. Depression often creates a sense of identity confusion. I don't feel like myself. I don't know who I am anymore. I feel disconnected from my own life. Everything feels meaningless. This happens because depression disrupts the brain's default mode network, responsible for self-reflection and personal narrative. As a result, a person may feel detached, uncertain, incomplete, mentally distant. This is frightening for many, but it is reversible. Guilt, shame, and self-blame. Depression feeds on guilt. People blame themselves for not being productive, not feeling happy, not being present, not being energetic, not being emotionally available. But guilt is part of the illness, not the cause of it. The paradox of guilt. The more guilty a person feels, the deeper the depression becomes, and the deeper the depression becomes, the more guilt they feel. This cycle can continue for months if not addressed. Depression's impact on self-esteem. Self-esteem does not collapse suddenly. It erodes slowly. First, doubting small abilities. Then doubting decisions. Then doubting worth. Then doubting purpose. Then doubting the right to exist. This is why supportive words matter. They interrupt the spiral. Social isolation. Depression often leads to canceling meetups, avoiding crowds, reducing communication, preferring to be alone, losing interest in friendships. But isolation increases depression, leading to a dangerous loop. Humans are social beings. Isolation affects the brain almost like physical pain. How depression impacts motivation. Motivation is not simply desire. It is a biological mechanism involving dopamine, energy production, reward prediction. In depression, dopamine drops, energy drops, reward system fails to activate. Thus, wanting to do something and being able to do it become two separate realities. The fear of the future. Depression steals hope. It makes the future look dark, uncertain, meaningless, threatening. The depressed brain cannot imagine positive outcomes. This is not a conscious choice. It is a cognitive limitation caused by the illness. Conclusion of Part 2. This chapter explored how depression affects thinking, decision-making, identity, relationships, family, work, motivation, time, self-worth. Understanding these effects is essential because you cannot treat what you cannot see. Depression hides behind small behaviors, subtle thoughts, and quiet struggles. But when you illuminate these patterns, you begin to take the power back from the illness. Healing depression, treatment, recovery, resilience, and long-term mental strength. Depression is powerful, but it is not unbeatable. The human mind has a remarkable ability to heal, reorganize, and grow, even after long periods of darkness. Recovery is not instant, and it is not linear. It is an ongoing process built from small steps, consistent habits, meaningful connections, and evidence-based treatment. The goal of this chapter is to break the stigma, remove confusion, and provide a clear, practical guide to understanding how healing actually happens, biologically, emotionally, socially, and psychologically. This chapter is intentionally written like a calm, thoughtful lecture or podcast episode, allowing the listener to absorb the information gently, one insight at a time. 1. Depression is treatable, scientifically, emotionally, and socially. People without depression often say, just be positive. But that advice misunderstands the illness. Depression is not a character flaw. It is not weakness. It is not a lack of effort. It is a medical condition involving real changes in the brain's chemistry, structure, and functioning. Treatments work because they target these very changes. Research from major medical institutions, the American Psychiatric Association, the National Institute of Mental Health, the World Health Organization, shows that 80–90% of people with depression improve significantly when they receive appropriate treatment. Healing is possible. Relapse is preventable. Life can return to meaning, energy, and direction. 2. How antidepressant medication works. Medication is one of the most misunderstood aspects of depression treatment. Many people fear it, misunderstand it, or feel ashamed to use it. But antidepressants are simply tools, scientifically designed tools that help restore the brain's balance. Why medication helps. Depression involves dysregulation in neurotransmitters like serotonin, mood stability; dopamine, motivation, reward, pleasure; norepinephrine, energy, alertness; GABA/glutamate, emotional balance. Antidepressants work by adjusting these systems so the brain can function normally again. What medication does not do. It does not change your personality. It does not create artificial happiness. It does not make you addicted. It does not erase real-life problems. What medication does do is stabilize the internal chemistry so you have the strength to deal with life. Types of antidepressants. 1. Esri, e.g. sertraline, fluoxetine. O. Improve serotonin balance. O. Most common, generally mild side effects. 2. SNRI, e.g. venlafaxine, duloxetine. O. Target serotonin plus norepinephrine. O. Help with both mood and physical symptoms. 3. Atypical antidepressants, e.g. bupropion. O. Affect dopamine. O. Good for motivation and energy. 4. Tricyclics and MAOIs. O. Older but effective. O. Used when other options don't work. Why medication takes time. Antidepressants require 3–6 weeks to adjust brain chemistry, and sometimes longer. They are not like painkillers. They work by gradually restoring balance. Medication plus therapy equals highest success. Research shows the strongest recovery rates occur when medication is paired with therapy. The combination treats both the biological and psychological dimensions of depression. 3. Psychotherapy, rewiring the brain through conversation. Therapy is not just talking. It is scientifically validated brain training. Just as exercise strengthens the body, therapy strengthens mental muscles. Emotional regulation, problem solving, coping mechanisms, self-awareness, resilience, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT is the most researched therapy for depression. It teaches people to recognize distorted thinking, challenge unhelpful beliefs, replace harmful patterns, build balance